We heard the mover of this matter of public importance say some foolish claims. Here's 5. 1, the Australian bushfires of 2020 were unprecedented. But
here in New South Wales, what unprecedented mega fires look like. We experienced them ourselves in that terrible, deadly black summer of 2019-20. Hundreds of climate and fire experts in this country said these fires were our wake-up call because they demonstrated the extreme effects of climate disruption in Australia. Now it's the rest of the world's turn to get their wake-up call.
But here's what that partisan left-wing website Wikipedia says. Bushfires in Australia are a widespread and regular occurrence that have contributed significantly to shaping the nature of the continent over millions of years. Eastern Australia is one of the most fire-prone regions of the world, and its predominant eucalyptus forests have evolved to thrive on the phenomenon of bushfire, end quote. Bushfires are so much part of our ecosystem, we have several plants that only release seeds under the intensity of a bushfire. Colonial newspapers in the 19th century reported over 7,000 bushfires. The bushfires were so large in 1938-39 that ash fell in the cities of New Zealand. There is a horrific bushfire season about once a decade. That will continue. So rather than politically weaponising them, the conversation should be around mitigation. 2, the fires in the Northern Hemisphere are the worst on record. This is false.
Coal and gas is causing more frequent and severe fires. After the Black Summer fires, which killed 33 people, destroyed more than 3,000 homes and killed billions of animals, peer-reviewed research by the CSIRO found that the average annual area in Australia increased, the burnt area increased by 800% over the past 32 years.
NASA satellites are unequivocal. In the year 2000, around 3% of the Earth's land surface was on fire at some point over a year, but that has trended down sharply and it's now almost 2%. But at the same time, media coverage of wildfires has increased 5-fold. Sensationalism sells. 3, she claimed there were unprecedented floods in China right now.
Floods and landslides have claimed at least 91 lives in northern India, at least 46 in South Korea. More than 20,000, tens of thousands of people have been displaced due to flooding in China. Yes, it is.
She claimed there were unprecedented floods in China right now. Yes, 11 people tragically drowned overnight in China. But when we look at the list of the worst 10 floods in history, 6 are from China, with the death toll ranging from 145,000 to 4 million, which was the death toll as recently as 1931. And 4, we were told global boiling is happening faster than the scientists predicted.
Climate scientists, those same ones who predicted an increase in the severity of floods and fires decades ago, have documented what 1 degree warming looks like, and it's playing out already. And they've documented what 2 degrees and what 4 degrees looks like. And a lot of our planet actually becomes unlivable, including New South Wales.
This is absurdly false. Like many doomsday movements, the global boilists cannot help setting doomsday dates to frighten weaker and often young minds. In 1989, the Associated Press made global headlines with the claim, a senior UN environmental officer, Noel Brown, says entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if global warming trend is not reversed by the year 2000. Didn't happen. In 2006, Al Gore said we have 10 years before we hit the point of no return. Didn't happen. In 2008, Rajendra Pachauri, head of the UN Climate Panel, said if there's no action before 2012, that's too late. What do we do in the next 2 to 3 years will determine our future. Didn't happen. In 2018, Greta Thunberg tweeted, a top climate scientist is warning climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years. That anniversary recently passed and the tweet deleted.
Because successive governments refuse to transition away from the polluting activities that scientists have been warning us about for decades, we are literally cooking the planet, Mr. President, and ourselves.
Assume for a moment that for the first time in history, an apocalyptic doomsday cult was actually correct. The Greens and the leader of the government spoke on this subject at length, but neither of them mentioned China. Western nations like Australia, the US and Europe have steadily reduced our carbon dioxide over the past quarter of a century in real terms. Some say we should have reduced further, but regardless, reduced we have. But in the same period, China has increased its carbon emissions by 500%. China now emits 11 billion tonnes of carbon a year. The US is less than half that. China now has 1,110 coal-powered electricity plants with a tonne in the pipeline. The US has only 240 and little old Australia has a mere 19. So China is not only massively the largest carbon emitter, but it's growing exponentially. Now, according to the Greens, we're heading for an apocalypse. It's all because of one thing, carbon emissions, and China is spewing out endless and exponential carbon emissions. But Mr. President, no mention of China. They're not interested. If the Greens are correct, they should praise Western governments for cutting emissions, campaign for trade sanctions and protest out the front of Chinese embassies demanding a massive reduction in this planet-poisoning gas. But oddly, there's no mention of China.
Secretary-General added the 1.5 degrees target was still attainable, but only through dramatic, immediate climate action. So the previous government failed to act, but they were the coalition. We expected that from them, with their outrageous climate denialism and pathetic ideological desire and obsession with polluting coal and gas.
Global boiling is about domestic politics. Global boiling is a Trojan horse to bring about the all-powerful big government that some on the left crave. The member bemoaned an ideological desire from the coalition, but that's not the real ideological desire at play here. The Communist Party of Australia collapsed in 1991, and the following year the Australian Greens were established. I acknowledge there are many good people in the Greens who have a passion to protect the natural world, and I salute them. But it is also undeniable that some former activists from the Communist Party joined the Greens, and all the old enemies of the communists, capitalism in America, etc., are today rebadged as global boiling denialists, while communist China is given a completely free pass. What a coincidence. I recently saw a video on Twitter of the mover releasing an injured but recovered koala into the wild. This is the real-world environmentalism that I urge the Greens to focus on and not get distracted by the global boiling fairy tale. I want to conclude by saying to the young people of New South Wales, life is wonderful. Make the most of it. Do all you can to protect the natural world, but do not be tricked into thinking doomsday is just around the corner, because it ain't.